People say that your childhood shapes who you become, and that's true, but I'd also like to add that the things that you have to survive in your childhood really shapes who you become. When I was 10 years old, my mother remarried. My father had died before I was 2 years old. So she deserved a life, and she found someone, and she got married. And I was, at that time, being 10 years old, like I said before, I was really looking forward to having a dad. And as soon as we got to Grayville and settled in, things changed drastically right after that. My expectations of having a dad were really stricken down the first day I was over there. He turned out to be very cold, very calculating, very strict, and very mentally abusive. And I wasn't going to be one to rock the boat being that young for my mother, because I knew that she loved the man. I couldn't see it, but I knew she did love him. And I guess the only good thing I can ever say about him was that he never laid a hand on me. But he did at one time tell me that I was probably the laziest white boy he ever knew. So the saving grace about all this was that since I was 10 years old, I had already formed a lot of my character up till that age. And if it hadn't been for some of the people that had been in my life up until that time, I think it could have greatly affected me. And if I'd have been younger than 10, when he would have had more of an influence on me, I think my life would have turned out to be quite a bit different. I had an older brother, and he was very significant in my life. But after 2 years being in Greenville, after my mother had remarried, he went off to college. And that's when things really drastically changed for me, because really at that time I really didn't have anybody else to talk to in the house. So I just I withdrew from the house and just made sure that my life outside the house was one that I could deal with. The men that I had at church that were mentors and their sons, I became good friends with them. And there was especially one that was at church, and his name was Chester Don Worthington. And he played a significant part in my life, became a mentor, and really became just a strong advocate for me. Not advocating to anybody outside, but I just knew that he had confidence and admiration, for my work ethic. He had a large tobacco farm, and I started working out there, and he just gave me a lot of responsibilities at a younger age that he didn't give to some of the boys that were my age, those types of responsibilities. So he just had a lot of confidence in me, and he stayed really a mentor for me really my entire life, or his entire life. He's passed away in the last 3 or 4 years, but it was a significant part of who he was. But anyway, I made it through the high school years. Had no communications in the house with the stepfather. I really don't think about it much, because if I think about it, I actually start getting a little bit frustrated and kind of mad about the whole situation, because it was so uncalled for treating a child that way. It was just ridiculous. But anyway, when I got to college, I went off to a junior college, went off to Lewisburg, because the reason I had done that, because I was just going to get away, because even earlier, when my mother started recognizing what was going on, she'd even asked me if we needed to leave, and I told her we couldn't do that, because even at that age, coming from the rural area that we were and what she'd been through, I knew that our financial situation was significantly different, and different being better. So I wasn't going to rock the boat on that. So I just said, let me just get through high school and we'll just work on getting me out of here. And she kind of went along with that. So hence I ended up going to Lewisburg, which was a junior college. And I stayed there 2 years. And then I transferred to NC State, followed my brother's footsteps. He was in FarmHouse Fraternity. I joined the fraternity, and that's where things really changed for me. I'd say the 4 years that I was there in Raleigh, because I went on to graduate school for a couple of years as well, but the relationships that I formed during that 2 years are some of the best relationships, lifelong relationships that I've ever had, and even until this day. Matter of fact, I just had one friend of mine to get in touch with me, and just last week, he and another friend that were fraternity brothers, one of them was actually a roommate, we got together and we met out here. Hadn't seen one of them for 46 years, but it was just like yesterday. Share a little something with, because this fella right here I hadn't seen in 45 years until today. And Tayback, I just got up with probably a couple, 3 months ago, and I didn't even know he was in the area, and he'd been around here for 25 years. I thought he'd gone somewhere out west. But we were all in FarmHouse Fraternity at NC State, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was, especially like with Mark right now, hadn't seen each other in 45 years until today, and at the time we were getting to know each other at FarmHouse, and how we've kind of bonded, and then we get here today, and it's like we hadn't seen each other until day before yesterday.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on that? If you elaborate a little bit.
One of the best things, I grew up and I only had sisters. So when I pledged FarmHouse and found out, I had 65 brothers, and this was a group of guys you were close with, and Doug had pledged the semester before me, so he was real active, we'll say, with the pledges. But it was a great group. I mean, we've reminisced today, and I think back a lot of these guys, just talk about different events happened. But we went to ball games together, we ate together, and the way the house was then, it was an actual house, unlike you go today and they're like little apartments and the guys don't interact. So, I mean, we'd watch TV in the evening, we'd have a dinner. It was a good group of people.
Those triple bunk beds.
Yep. Oh yeah, and I had the top one. And
oh man!
If I was there today, I'd be on the bottom. Ain't no way to climb up the top. But Doug and I, we were both active and stuff.
That's a good word.
But we reconnected over Facebook over the years, and he has some opinions very similar to mine. So I him said, hey, I go to, me and Julie and our kids and all grandkids, we go to Emerald Isle. For 45 years I've been going. And I called him and said, hey, I'm going to be there. It ain't that far. Can we get together? So he said he'd line it up. So Tim was actually my first little brother. I had two. I had Tim, then I had Clark Coyer. And he was almost my age, but he transferred into the state. And then I think senior year, he wasn't in school for a little while and then came back. But I always thought he went back to Connecticut because Doug said, oh, he lives close. I said, man, I hadn't thought about him.
Well, the way I got back up with Tim, we had an apartment. I was last semester up there, and he had stopped school because he had to work. He was trying to save a little bit of money. And the last time I saw him before I moved out, he was driving off in his Jeep going to work because he was working for a survey crew. And I just assumed he probably didn't ever go back to school, moved back to Connecticut.
Yeah.
And then I had a guy out here that was talking to me about some of my longleaf stuff. And he said, well, one of the best guys that you can probably talk to about this stuff is Tim Tayback. And I went,
Can't beat one.
I went, good gosh. I said, I knew a Tim Tayback, but they can't beat but one, I guess.
But when I knew him, he was an electrical engineer, you know. So,
And ended up in forestry.
yeah.
Best thing
Hey,
for it.
you know what? Getting in wood products for me, I left chemical, not due to grades, but I went industrial engineering, and it's the best thing ever happened to me. I mean, if you ask me, if I went back to NC State, I'd do the same degree I got, because it's been very good to me. You know, and you know, chemical engineering, it would have been such a huge field. It'd been hard to get to where I got, but I wouldn't do it. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, what do you credit getting where you are? I said, well, you know, you got to get up and go to work, and you got to work hard. But my degree at NC State paid off in multiple times. Just knowing wood and furniture and cabinets, it gives you a step up on everybody else that don't know it. So, you know, but NC State, I mean, it was a good deal for us. But you know, we were all, it was a lot of, we were competitive, but there's a lot of guys there, and they were good guys.
Well, we could be competitive together against the other fraternities.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And that's what I wanted to kind of get across, because at that time in our life, that was probably the first time we'd all been away from home.
Mm-hmm.
We were establishing some relationships, because even I've been back out here for 25 years, and even some of the friends I have that are out here that I see at church, we don't have the bonds that we've got right now, because you know, I think these guys is just brothers, just like we were.
Yeah.
And that was just a huge part of growing up at that time, and the relationships that you can form. So that's kind of the point I wanted to get across, and we're still doing it today.
Yeah.
So,
There's no doubt everybody was an individual, but we got together, you know, the folks.
And living in that fraternity house, it was actually a business. I mean, the association owned the house, but the group of guys there, we had to pay for it, the insurance, all the bills, and we learned responsibility, because you wasn't in the dorm where they do everything. I mean, we had a cook, we had to make sure she got paid. I mean,
because our fraternity was not owned by the university,
right.
and we had to do it all. I mean, we did the repairs.
We did the yard, everything.
We
Yeah.
were off campus.
Mm-hmm. But sharing about 3 bathrooms with 60 people.
I
But,
don't know how y'all did that.
but it was tough.
I never lived in the main house.
Yeah, it was
I
tough.
couldn't figure that out.
but it worked for some reason.
And we had a little old washer and dryer like you have in a house, and we had 60 guys
Yeah,
using it.
it never cut off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was free. It was part of your
And it worked.
dues.
It just worked.
It worked. It worked, yeah. But you know, I still think back at the ball games, the Star and Crescents. Everything we did was fun. We would get like a city bus, and the farmhouse, we would ride the bus to Carter Finley, because at that time it's just Carter, I guess. You couldn't walk to it. It was 5-6 miles from
And you
campus.
didn't have the end zones. I mean, it was just the two side stadiums,
Yep.
bleachers and all. So yeah, that bus ride was a big part of that
Yep.
weekend.
Yeah, the big thing was
Old Taylor driving that thing.
you couldn't get drink too much at the game, because all them buses looked alike when you came out. So you had to be able to find that bus, you know.
Yeah, I've chased them down.
Yeah,
and
said,
get on.
hey, which one?
Well, I appreciate you guys
Oh, it's been
saying
great.
a little something about it, and
Well, we're gonna do it every year.
well,
Yeah.
well, maybe we can do another one next year.
Yeah.